All right, it's 6 o'clock. I'm gonna call to order, open the Town of Rutland Select Board meeting. We're meeting in the lower level of the Rutland Public Library. This is a joint meeting with FinCom, to discuss the, special town meeting warrant. We're on Zoom and we're being recorded for live broadcast on local access television, as well as, recorded for future airing on local access television, YouTube, everywhere. Alex, do you wanna open and then we can do the pledge and then get going?
Yep. 6 o'clock, call to order, Finance Committee.
We can do the pledge and then go right in. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, under the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I appreciate everyone, I appreciate Austin and Tamika getting the warrant out to all of us, and I appreciate everyone taking time outside of a meeting to go through and submit questions, provide ample time for staff to get the answers. So I think, Austin, I think you were hoping the select board would vote to we can go through the articles if needed and then vote to kind of approve the entire thing, with recommendations for both select board and FinCom per article, is that correct?
That's the goal.
Do you wanna lead us through, or we can just start with the first one, and go from there? Do you want me to lead, or do you guys wanna?
That's fine, I mean, I think we're happy to answer any questions. Hopefully the ability to have the warrant sent to both boards and commissions ahead of time allowed for some questions and feedback on the articles, so hoping tonight can fill in some of the gaps that may have been missed and then answer any other questions.
So Article 1 sponsors DPW to see if the town will vote to transfer $203,000 from water and sewer retained earnings, including costs related to emergency water and sewer infrastructure repairs, or take any action in relation thereto. There are a couple of questions, really what the certified retained earnings were. And that number is $648,552. So is there discussion, comments? If we're gonna agree to the entirety of the warrant, we can, a select board, vote to recommend or not recommend. Finance, I think the hope was that you guys would also make your recommendations at this meeting. And then we can vote at the end to approve the entire warrant.
So through the board, through the chair rather, I do have an article that I do need to comment on when we get to it. So I don't know if that would create a problem with the collection.
I think this is an opportunity to kind of go through everything, and if there's additional comments or questions or feedback or whatever, we can do that.
I think, like I said, we're going through each one and then we're gonna, you guys are gonna place them all, cause you guys place them, we don't place them, so.
Right.
He needs to recuse himself.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
no, that's totally okay.
How the hell did you know?
I happen to know.
You talked to my friend, okay.
I would just, when orders made, I would just abstain.
Yeah. So, I don't know if there's any additional feedback. If not from the select board, I would take a motion to recommend in the affirmative. I think we just want to make the recommendation, and if there's no recommendation, it's no recommendation.
It's favorable, unfavorable, or no action.
Thank you. So, and I would take a motion to recommend favorably.
Are you gonna place these, each one as you go along?
I don't think so. I think we were gonna talk about them, and then I think the hope was we had already kind of gone through them cursorily at our Monday meeting 2 weeks ago, and that we would place them in their entirety now, at the end after we have the conversation, but go through and make the motions favorable or unfavorable.
So just a motion favorably or unfavorably?
Correct.
Make a motion to
vote favorably for Article 1.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So for select board, Jen, we'll do roll call for this.
Ledger,
This
aye.
is, okay,
Galvin, aye?
Second, aye?
Matthew and I,
Whitman, aye. Alex, do you guys wanna make your recommendations at the same time so we go by each one?
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Do you have a motion on Article 1?
Well, I guess I got a question before we do that, because, I mean, if we're gonna recommend it, there may be questions before you decide to recommend it.
Yeah, well, that's, I mean, I did ask our group if there was I went through what the question was that was submitted and if there was additional questions, but if you
So-
guys have additional, by all means.
so wouldn't the process be to make the recommendation and have a discussion?
Well, no, I wanna ask a question before we get that far.
Because we want to make a recommendation and have.
What's your question?
Anyway, the
What's
question.
the question?
So this is retained earnings of 648. What is the balance? We had voted at town meeting a while ago, there was a loan that we took out for capital expenses. What's the balance in that account, do you know?
Well, that's included in the budget. We took a $3 million loan, 2 million I think was for water, 1 million was for sewer. We've used a portion of that, I don't know that, but this is not with respect to to that loan. This is essentially the free cash of the water sewer enterprise fund,
Okay.
which was
Okay.
just certified a couple of days
That's
ago.
what I mean, that number of the other thing is not in this 648. This is, that's what I'm saying. This is just retained earnings.
So this is just in case we need any repairs, that's what this is for?
Correct, yeah, well, so typically, this is voted at annual town meeting. The amount has varied over the past few years. This would be an amount to also cover some emergency repairs that have taken place at the water treatment facility. One of the filters was down, so we needed to conduct that repair, so this is covering the cost of that. And also any other unanticipated water main breaks, and any other repairs that are needed for the remaining of this fiscal year.
And retained earnings would be used for operation too, if need be, during the year.
I'm sorry?
I said, this retained earnings would be used for operation also during the year if need be.
We're hoping to build a little bit of capacity with this, just in case
No, I
those
know.
things
But
happen.
I'm just saying if you had to,
No, if we can only appropriate from retained earnings at a town meeting.
Oh.
So this is the only one that we have until the annual.
Okay.
Recommendation?
Make a motion, we recommend favorable action on this article.
Second.
Do we have to do roll call, or is there a reason you guys did?
We just always do roll call, I think
All
it's
in
habit
favor?
for us.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Moving into Article 2, Seth just had to bolt because there's a structure fire. To see if the town will vote to transfer $52,680 from one account, which is a deputy fire chief salary, to another account, which is fire replacement equipment, or taking any action in relation thereto. I know there were a couple questions. The expenses that would be covered by the transfer of the deputy salaries, deputy chief salary was covered. It's covering 1-year expenses related to the hiring of the deputy chief, including all associated equipment such as turnout gear, radios, etc. It also covers the contract for the consulting firm that was used to recruit the new deputy. And why not fire purchase services instead of equipment? And a majority of the expenditures are equipment, which was described above. And so the deputy fire chief I know is not starting until, I think, January of 2024. So there's, the budgeted amount was for the full fiscal year. So there's overage there is overage money available in the deputy fire chief line item for that, rather than doing this at the end of the fiscal year as a deficit spent account. He's trying to do it proactively, to do it in advance. Does that, I know our board had a couple questions. Harry, maybe Austin can answer them. Seth, just like I said, unfortunately had bolt.
You wanna do the questions, or you wanna make a motion first?
I think we can have the conversation now, and then I would rather everybody feel comfortable making the motions, making the recommendations.
I just have a question. In terms of, when we look at the money that we spent to hire the fire chief, there is a purchase services account that we're putting all this into, and looking at doing that because it's considered incidental. So my question is, of that $52,680, how much related to the hiring of the deputy fire chief out of that $52,680? Dollar-wise, how much?
Through the chair, the cost associated with 52,000, so that's including as mentioned in the, answers to some of the questions, are associated with the MRI contract, 2 sets of turnout gear, radios, and of course, now that that the spotlight is on me, I'm forgetting the remaining equipment, but it's all incidental, or whatever you wanna call it, expenses related to the hiring of the deputy fire chief. This was a figure that was presented by the fire chief, who unfortunately just bolted out just before this article. But this was an article obviously presented by the chief for those transitional expenses. I also just wanna note, for the record, this was also mentioned to the previous board and this finance committee that this was the plan, to transfer costs associated with hiring the deputy fire chief mid-year, whether it was September, January, sometime during the year. So, obviously, I don't think he presented an actual amount to the FinCom or the select board, I can't remember, I wasn't here at the time. But this was kind of always in the plan, so whether it's to the purchase services, supplies, this was the article that was presented by the chief.
And from my perspective, I'm new to this, but having an accounting background, I'm curious as to why, when we say incidental, was it $300 for the deputy chief's cost to hire? Was it $10,000? And what do we mean by incidental for the future? Is incidental?
So the costs of equipment and services have actually varied. So the process for the deputy fire chief was actually more comprehensive because it involved actually more phases. The chief chose a more comprehensive process rather than the police lieutenant. While we selected the same firm, the police lieutenant did not involve extensive multiple rounds of interviews, and it did involve an assessment center, which was also the same for the deputy fire chief. However, with the amount of candidates that we had for the deputy fire chief, it was a more comprehensive process. And as you know, we did select an external candidate who right now is serving overseas. So there was also some other procedures that were involved in that process as well. Now, $300 is definitely not realistic for equipment as well. Safe to say that turnout gear, multiple sets of turnout gear, radio equipment gets into several $1,000s. It's not cheap to buy equipment for the fire department.
So we don't have the total that we're paying the contracting firm for the recruiter?
No, we do. I just don't have that, Karen.
Okay, thanks, because I know that's what you were asking, I was like,
No,
I
It's,
get it, I get it.
it's honestly, it's more than $10,000.
Yeah.
So-
Definitely more than $10,000.
So that's not
To give you
really
reference,
incidental.
hiring me, I think was $12,000.
So that's not really incidental. I guess what I'm getting at, from a financial perspective of how we allocate the money, I have no problem with the $52,000 plus amount. What I have an issue with is how we account for it on the books. So it's transparent to the town. So if we spent $15,000 to hire, then that should be under purchase services. The rest of it should be under equipment. I have no problem with that. But to lump it all together under equipment doesn't seem to be a fair accounting practice. So I would like, but again, that's my account, and I'm saying, why don't we split these two? So maybe somebody can give me an
The
answer.
good news is this account's not been used, so it's gonna stick out like a sore thumb. So it's gonna be more transparent than if you split it into both, because we use the purchase services. This will stick out as to what the amount is.
Bigger number.
Because
How will it-
because there's $0 in the budget for it.
But how will you allocate that inside the equipment? Are you gonna show it as deputy hiring information
No, but
in there?
if you go through your expense reports and you drill down, you'll be able to see exactly what it is.
Yeah, Harry, as a part of the ledger that I think Donna actually sends out, and the warrant that you guys
You'll see
approve
it.
every 2 weeks, you see the detail.
Yeah, it'll show
spelled
you
out in there as
exactly.
well. But I mean, I just wanna make a point also about the budget. I mean, I think in our conversation earlier today, I think there's a lot of ways that I think our budget is presented, that if you're asking and talking about transparency, the fact that many budgets just have a purchase services line item when you know that there's a lot of other things that could be qualifying as purchase services. We could certainly get a lot more granular, I think it's just the style of how Rutland has presented their budget over the years. And certainly in future years, based off of feedback from both of these boards, we can change that, but unfortunately, this is how it's working now. So if we have a selection of what line items we're transferring to, this is what was proposed.
So I hear what you said, so let me see if I can repeat that. Putting all this money into the equipment is more transparent than putting X number of dollars into purchase services for what we hired the deputy for, and putting the rest of the money into equipment. So we have that breakdown. I guess I'm having a hard time understanding
Because when
that.
you drill down on that on your expense report, it will clearly state this, and this. And that'll all add up and you'll see exactly where it's going versus the purchase services account could have the phones, it could have the radios, it could have everything that gets paid monthly. This way it'll be one thing that you'll be able to drill down and see when we're paying things.
You can't do that in the purchase
You
services account?
can, but there's more muddied water, whereas this one, it doesn't have anything hitting there.
There's a lot
except
more
this
hits to the purchase services
than
accounts
this one.
than
It doesn't
this.
really matter. The fact of the matter is, it's a consulting fee, which we consider purchase services. So really, that amount of money should be going to purchase services, period. And that's what you're saying, and you're 100% correct. It should be separated out.
You know,
It's- I
just
don't
from
think it's
a
that
financial
complicated, yeah.
perspective.
It's not that complicated to separate those two things out.
Candidly, this article is an odd one anyways, because the concept of transferring from line items is usually done at the end of the year. This is not a typical item that's on a special town meeting or an annual town meeting warrant anyways.
So if we do it this way now, then we won't have to do it at the end of the year?
Correct.
It seems simple.
So I guess,
I have a question about this too.
yeah, I mean, I can't see, so,
Okay, I can come over here.
no, you're totally fine, I don't mind you back there, just feel free to
I
interject.
guess my question too is we better have a good explanation why the fire department one is $52,680 and the police department is $8,900. Cause we sold everybody that it was $100,000 each when we went for the override.
I don't know if it was $100,000 each, I think the salaries for each were at
We
$100,000.
expected them to be $100,000
Yeah, no,
approximately.
so I'll explain, the reason also why it's going to purchase services, because the only transitional expense for the police department is the contract. We hired an internal candidate, our detective, this isn't public, but congratulations, detective. The rest of the department knows, we promoted our detective to lieutenant's position. We don't have to purchase additional equipment for him. He already has radios, he already has any other associated gear, weaponry. So there isn't, we don't have to incur additional expenses to hire.
I guess I understand what you're saying, but my point is, when I'm John Q. Public sitting there and I see the fire department needed 52 and the police department only needs 8,900, we better have a good answer, because people are gonna ask that question.
And that's part of my reason. is
And
like-
that's, I understand where Harry's going with this, cause me and you've been sitting side by side at these meetings for 50 years. So the problem is, we gotta be, I don't think you're doing it wrong, but you gotta have your answer better than where we're going with it. And not, no shame, but someone's gonna ask a question and they're gonna be like, all right, guys, why is it so much different? You know it's coming.
So do you think, I think the chiefs have asked for these to be placed, but do you think it's better to hold them until the annual and handle them how we normally do at the end of?
I don't think it's
end of the
normal,
year?
I don't think it's Darren's personal opinion is, I don't think it's a problem. We just, someone in the group, it can't be a bunch of people like deer in the headlights up there when this question gets asked, because someone's gonna ask the question.
Right.
Because during the process of the override, I thought we kinda sold it was approximately $100,000 for the fire chief and the police, the fire
The
deputy chief and the
lieutenant, yeah.
lieutenant, which is fine,
So,
but it's not that way.
Darren, are you looking for an accounting? Are you looking for the details of the 52 and the details of the 89 to be able to
I just
compare?
want someone in the group,
Group,
Austin,
To be able to answer the question.
Be able to answer the question.
Or the chief who's our structure fire.
Or you just put it in the explanation where you put,
Yeah,
this is
we can
so
have
much for recruiting, so much for radio, so much for this. And just
Yeah.
put it there, and then it's very
Seth
transparent,
said
no one
he's
can
on his way
complain.
back.
Seth was gonna be here tonight to be able to give those. I don't know if you guys wanna hold that just for the purposes tonight,
He'll
if
be
he's
back
coming
in
back.
5 minutes. He's on his way.
But all I can say is if you were to hold it, just expect a transfer request at the end of the year.
I
still-
don't think
we
we
still
have
have
to
to
hold it,
incur
I
these
just want someone
expenses.
to explain it.
Because then we can't, then we could potentially be causing him into a situation where he's deficit spending, and we don't want that.
Right.
Right.
We don't want it, he can do it, but we
Well,
don't
he
want
still
it.
has the
Right.
salary money, so he won't deficit spend.
The other consideration is,
The
Purchase
equipment.
service- The equipment and the purchase services won't be there.
the other consideration is with the internal candidate for the police lieutenant, it's possible that there'll be additional purchase service requests coming in as a new detective is hired, or if it's, that position is promoted within, at some point, there's going to be an additional hire somewhere in that department. And so we may see that request after the town, after the town meeting for additional equipment or whatever, depending on how the purchase services amount
We
works out.
just have to have an answer for someone, that's all.
No,
And I don't think we should change it to, I think it's perfectly fine the way it is, but we have to be able to explain
Yep.
why it's different.
Yep.
And I understand what Harry's saying, if someone says, how come the police chief is that, and someone's gonna be able to say, the fire one was 15,000 and the police was 3.
Right.
Or whatever, and give those answers, because you can't have the deer in the headlights look.
And my point was, again, I don't care on that, I just want an accounting so the town can understand. Here's what we did for equipment, it should go to equipment. Here's what it costs to hire, it should go to purchase services. Because right now, it just says, basically, for to cover all related expenses, including incidental for the hiring. But it doesn't say, and maybe, Carrie, you're right, if it's in there, it says, the hiring costs of this included in that are $15,000. But somehow the town should know of what it cost us to hire the deputy chief.
To your point, Harry, it's, not jumping ahead, but moving to Article 3, that one's being moved to the police purchase services. So there's that discrepancy as well, that one's going to equipment, and for the same, half of the same, it's going to a
So
different.
Just speak up, Tommy, don't
Yeah,
wait.
just-
Don't wait.
Just ninja jet. No, go ahead.
There's more expenses.
My question is, when we went through the budget process, and this was put into the budget, and as Darren just said, it was in the override. Wasn't there a plan for the hiring process? Well, we must use an assessment
To
center.
take from the salaries, Tom.
I'm sorry, what?
Plan was to take from the salaries. I think Seth, who's here now, sounds like it was a great structure fire. Yeah, okay.
Good intent.
I think, so when indicating and talking about this deputy chief position, and also I believe Police Chief Monaco indicated the same, the intent was to transfer from the salary any associated costs with this transition, whether it's.
And that was said at
whether
the
it's
town
con-
meeting when we were voting
It
on
was
it?
said in the budget hearings, I think it was.
No, at the
maybe
town
not.
meeting, when people voted on this, they voted a salary line item for a person for July 1st.
Through the chair.
Yeah,
When we voted at town meeting, we voted public safety as a block. There was no discussion at town meeting on anything because the people didn't see the breakout of the budget at town meeting. So there was no discussion of individual line items at town meeting. The budget passed as presented as blocks. And public safety was passed as whatever, 15 million or whatever it was, as a total number.
Through the chair?
Oh, okay, but so what we reviewed then, let's go back a step before that then. So what the finance committee and select board reviewed, there wasn't a line item
Right.
layout, and the 101,000, or whatever it was for a salary, correct?
Correct.
Okay, it was for a salary. So if I'm looking at that, I'm looking at the salary, I'm assuming that if you're gonna do a hiring process where you're gonna hire an assessment center, then that should have been in purchase services, and for whatever that was done, there should have been money there ahead of time to do this hiring process.
But if you listen to what Seth is saying, it's a matter of the pocket of the pants that you put it in, because it's in.
I listened to what he said, I know exactly what he said.
But the proposal, the budget, the amendment, the warrant article was for the total. not for the individual pieces. And that's what was voted on, was for the total. So if that's done, we have had our conversations by department. And that goes on, but that's not gonna change really a whole hell of a lot of the articles. The articles are the total.
It really doesn't matter now. We're at a point where we need to move the money to cover the purchase services for the hiring and the equipment, so it is what it is at this point.
Well, it is what it is, but I have another question. So this 52,000 is gonna be used specifically for the deputy chief
Correct.
to cover the hiring process and everything else. It's not gonna be used for anything else. All this, so if we look at a piece of paper later on, all these numbers are gonna be spent for this one position.
And that's why I proposed it to be put into a line item that was not used this year. So everything would go into a line item that it was not used, that it was perfectly clear, cut and dry, that you could point directly at it and say, this is exactly what it cost.
Yep.
And the reason why I did that is because if I would have hyperinflated other accounts for a one-time expense,
It would have been cut.
we would have raised and appropriated additional money from the taxpayer for a one-year expense. And it doesn't make any sense. We're spending the same amount of money that was appropriated, we're just moving it into a different category for this purpose, that's all.
Well, I understand that. I'm not questioning that, so.
So how much was the hiring fee?
Hiring fee was 13,000.
That's cheap.
Through the chair.
Give me any idea.
Again, I come back to 13,000 is not incidental. So if we're gonna use the word incidental, we better explain how that 13,000 is.
It's incidental, it's only gonna happen once.
No, not incidental to the 52,000, it's not. That's a big portion of the 52,000.
Well, can
So
we,
you're saying that is incidental to the 52,000, and it's not.
well, can't we put it?
So I don't care whether we spent the 52 and change. All I'm saying is from an accounting perspective,
So just get rid of,
put it in.
including incidental for the hiring of the new deputy chief.
Why are you focusing on the word incidental?
Because it's
All
in-
related expenses and incidental. It's not saying they're all incidental expenses.
Well, can't we just put in the explanation? Can't we put in the hiring
It doesn't
cost
really
was
matter.
13,000, just to be more transparent?
Yeah.
But that 13,000 is in the explanation and the rest is incidental.
I don't care that we put it in there, guys.
Oh,
Just
we have to
someone better be
answer it.
able to explain it. That's all. I don't have a problem with this whole thing. Just be someone there to explain it, and the chief will probably be there. But, cause you know someone's gonna ask that question, Seth.
I mean, honestly,
And we'll stand up and support you, but it's gonna be you, and that's,
you could remove the words including incidental, and that seems like the easiest fix. All related expenses, and then if somebody asks, you explain.
And then Seth's explanation about moving it to a line item that has not been used this year is so that it's not inflating, that 13,000 isn't going into his purchase services to then this year when we look at actuals and then look at next year, he could potentially be asking for a $13,000 increase over and above what he actually would have to
It's not a
spend next year.
budgeted amount, so it sticks out like a sore thumb.
We know we don't have to budget it.
Right.
So we budgeted what we normally, above and beyond what we normally budget for equipment to include this number.
No, it was budgeted on the salary line.
And he's
Okay.
moving it to.
And all he's now taking it is the 6 months that we're not paying him salary, he's moving it from salary line to fire replacement equipment. And by putting it into an account that we don't budget typically, or we didn't budget this year, that way it won't inflate his budget for next year. He's trying to be transparent so that we don't give him too much money next year.
Cause this line item next year will be zero.
Right.
Right, so the line item next year for equipment will be zero?
No, this line item that we're using tonight
Yeah.
will be zero next year.
Right.
Because you're gonna put the salary into your salary account.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
And that way
This
it's
one salary will go into his total salary account for next
just where
year.
it was last year.
The
So it's
13,000?
No, the 102,000 or whatever.
For the new deputy.
Whatever.
Ted, you had
Some it is.
question?
Yeah, I had a couple of things. Well, I had one thing that I wanted to say, but then something I think Harry just said is significant. there will be no request for fire replacement equipment next year?
So
That's what you just said.
that is correct, because if you look at the line items that were used, we have a line item for, what is it? Fire department additional equipment.
Have
and
we ever asked for fire
Please.
replacement equipment?
Okay, so last year, as we all know, we consolidated accounts. And we had two equipment accounts. We had a replacement account and new equipment account. We eliminated it down to one. So what I'm saying is every year we budget fire equipment. But this is going into a different replacement equipment that is not funded this year, that will not be funded next year. Because we consolidated to one equipment account.
But I just want to say one last thing, going back to what Karen said. We do the budget, I've been doing budgets for a long time, and some years, some accounts are a lot, and the next year they drop back down. It depends on what is associated with it, and as long as I agreeing with, it's gotta be transparent, that's all.
Right, and I think, I'll let Ted finish, just because I know Ted had a few things.
So my first point was that I have this fuzzy recollection about the description of this, but I think what I'm hearing people saying is we knew this position was not gonna start on July 1st. Right. And we knew there would be money available, and that was the explanation that we had going into town meeting. And I think what, to Darren's point, is someone has got to be able to stand up and say that at the meeting if it is asked, and it seems like we're in a decent position to do that.
Yeah, write it down, so when he calls a structure fire, you'll have it.
No flyers allowed on town meeting.
Because 2 minutes before this comes up, he's gonna run out again, so.
So if I understand, if we, taking the money out of salaries a given, we're gonna do that. If we put it into the equipment account, that's not gonna change next year, the amount of money you need for equipment. Right. And if we put it into purchase services account, that's not gonna change next year, because we're not gonna have another one of those. So I don't understand why we aren't splitting it and putting the money into purchase services that we should be there for salary and the rest in equipment. I guess am I missing something in the contract, Seth?
I think it comes down to if you wanna be able to point to one specific line item and say, that's all the costs, right there. Or, like you said, we can divide it up and plop it into the different accounts. But then we was like, well, how much did we put in there for that purpose, you know? So we would have to go back and look through all of our records and say, oh, it was this much, and this much out of these three accounts. And that's what the cost was. What I'm trying to do is put it into one account that's not being used. We can label the account whatever you want. And, basically say,
One-time purchases or something.
one-time purchases, whatever, and just plop it in there, and that, so I just use the account because that way the town accountant didn't have to generate a new account number. It was just easier to plop it in there, and then we can just point to it and say, those are the costs, and then next year we don't have to worry about those costs, and we just worry about the rest of the line items, that's all.
I understand why you picked equipment, because you're saying that the salary is the minimal amount of
Correct.
all the costs.
Yeah.
I understand that. But from accounting perspective, and the board will decide, you guys could, from an accounting perspective, I just thought it should be split, so that.
I understand, yep.
Where this is here and this is here. But I understand where you're coming from, okay.
Ted, do you have something?
I think one thing I heard Karen say was that if we put the 13,000 in purchase services, we'd essentially be cutting that by 13,000 next year. Was that what you were saying?
Right, when we look at the actuals versus the budget, we're gonna be looking, going, what the heck did he do? And this way, if it sticks out, we'll know, okay, this is the year we hired it, so it sticks. In 6 months, none of us are gonna remember this conversation.
Oh, I don't know about that.
If you leave it, you don't remember the conversation from 6 months ago. I mean, so that's my whole thing is if we stick it out in that one spot, it'll stand out.
Again, I wasn't here when the budget was done. I don't know the background on it. I'm just looking from a pure accounting perspective. That's
Does
all
the
I'm
town
looking.
accountant have a problem with paying that fee out of this room? Okay, so there we go.
And I think now that we have a town accountant, we have a full-time town administrator on board, we're trying to professionalize that financial management team a little bit, that there's going to be some changes in the way the budget process, the budget accounting as well as process is done as far as how it makes sense to do these accounts. Because I agree that one-time purchases shouldn't be coming out of a recurring yearly account, but we need to do it somehow. So,
Motion?
yeah,
Make a motion to act favorably towards Article 2, sponsor fire department.
With explanation? With explanation?
No,
In other words,
that doesn't need to be.
we don't have
And
to do.
Article 2 favorably, that's
Oh,
what the
okay.
motion has to be.
Okay.
is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Jen?
Ledger I.
Mattson, aye.
Okay. Galvin, aye.
Harry?
Oh, Second aye.
Whitman, aye.
I make a motion, I'm sorry.
Does the motion need to say as amended? No, okay, sorry. You amended the explanation? Got it, thank you.
Gotcha. Okay, so there a motion?
Make a motion to recommend favorably on Article 2.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Got that.
Article 3 is to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $8,900 from one account, which is police lieutenant salary, to another account, which is police purchase services, or take any action in relation thereto. Similar, it's for the article, to cover the expenses related to hiring the police lieutenant. We didn't receive any specific questions on this article. So similar, we kind of included this conversation, Seth, before you came in, that it's a lesser amount because it's an internal candidate. We may see expenses come up down the road on the police side as an additional personnel is hired in the department elsewhere. And that it's going to purchase services rather than your account. That's the chief's prerogative. So any questions, comments, discussion?
Make a motion to vote favorably for Article 3, sponsor police department.
Second.
Roll call, Jen.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Second aye.
Mattson, aye.
Whitman, aye.
I make a motion that the finance board recommend favorably on Article 3.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Moving into the next set of articles, these are sponsored by the principal assessor. Article 4 is to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of GL Chapter 59, Section 5N to establish a program to allow veterans as defined by MGL or a spouse of a veteran in the case where the veteran is deceased or has a service-connected disability to volunteer to provide services to the town in exchange for a reduction of the real property tax obligations of that veteran equivalent to an hourly rate of no more than minimum wage in addition to any exemption or abatement to which that person is otherwise entitled, provided however the reduction of the real property tax bill shall not exceed $1,500 in a given tax year or take any action in relation thereto. The comments were there was a question as to why all of this next batch of MGL acceptance for tax breaks were coming forward. We have hired a full-time principal assessor now, and she's been going through MGL and kind of realized that in order to offer these exemptions or abatements, which we have been doing, we need to officially accept the MGL that allows that. So this is kind of cleaning up the books and allowing additional opportunities for people that meet these requirements have an avenue to receive some tax relief.
Yeah, just to add, the town council worked with Amy, and so all of these assessor's office ones were drafted specifically by town council.
Okay, thank you. So if for this article, Article 4, if there's no conversation, discussion, anything, I would take a motion to recommend favorable action.
Make a motion to vote favorably on Article 4, sponsor principal assessor.
Second.
Second motion.
Yep. Roll call, Jen.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Second aye.
Mattson, aye.
Whitman, aye.
I make a motion that the finance committee recommends favorable action on Article number 4.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question, now that we can ask him, but we have to second it.
He did second it.
He did.
He did.
Right, I have a question then. does anybody know in the room what they think this is gonna affect the tax? Is this gonna be a substantial amount of money between these next few articles? And I just gonna ask this once, that we're giving these guys, we're going to help people with giving them 50, how many people are gonna take advantage of this?
Yeah, there's a limitation, 10.
Going through the tax recap process and the budget process, we actually budget for what's called allowance for abatements and exemptions. It's approximately $90,000 per year that we allow for various types of exemptions that are listed in some of these articles. I believe for some of these particular articles, it's around 10 taxpayers that can utilize this program. It obviously depends on, how much, for example, on the workout program, how many hours they take, so that amount may vary, but.
But you say we have $90,000 budgeted to take care of this if that's okay.
Yeah, so we essentially levy, 20-something million dollars, we take 90,000 out of that and put that aside for abatements and exemptions.
Relief.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is specifically for veterans.
Yes.
And there was a lot of questions in our get-togethers with the town people about how is this thing going to work? With this thing getting so 2.5 override, what's it gonna do? So this just cleans it up so it works.
I have nothing negative about this.
No, I know that, I
I'm just-
understand that.
Where I'm going is, I just wanna see what the number is and you
Yeah.
guys got it covered, I'm good.
Yep.
Dave, do you have something?
I mean, I was just gonna reiterate that it's legitimizing a current and past practice.
That's right.
And probably not marketing a whole lot of new business.
No.
Even though, as Peter said, it was a significant subject of discussion at each of those budget hearings last spring, it's probably still unlikely to get a whole lot of.
Right.
Because there were people in town that already took advantage of it and department heads that made it known it was available, so I don't think it's gonna recruit.
And even if it does recruit new people, it's obviously going to a important thing, so there's
Correct.
nothing wrong with
I mean,
marketing
if he
it as
uses the
new
whole
business.
90 grand, there's not gonna be anybody more happy than me, so,
And budget practices have been such that there's always an allocation for this as well as some unpaid tax and everything, so I think
I got
that
no problem with it, I
it's
just was
covered.
wondering.
Good questions, no.
Through the chair. Austin, are you saying that these programs have already been used? And they are being used, we're just codifying them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
I
Opposed?
So moving into Article 5, again, the principal assessor to see if the town will vote to accept MGL Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 57, to allow the Board of Assessors to appropriate monies for and grant property tax rebates to eligible seniors in an amount not to be exceeded annually the amount of the income tax credit set forth under MGL, the so-called senior circuit breaker, or take any action in relation thereto. Again, I think that this is similar, something that we've been doing in practice. To actually codify it, we need to accept the MGL. Questions, comments, concerns?
Make a motion to vote favorably on Article 5, sponsor principal assessor.
One second. Motion and second, Jen.
Ledger I.
Oh, sorry, Galvin.
Second, I.
Mattson, aye.
Whitman, aye.
I make a motion that the finance committee recommends favorably on Article 5.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Article 6, sponsor principal assessor to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of GL Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 17E, which provides that the amount of the whole estate, real and personal, for exemptions granted to senior citizens, surviving spouses, and surviving minors as set forth in MGL shall be increased annually by an amount equal to the increase in the CPI published by the U.S. Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics for each year as determined by the Commissioner of Revenue, or take any action in relation thereto. Again, there were no specific questions. Again, it was just accepting MGL, the practice that kind of has, for this one, I think we've been honoring this. I'm not 100% sure for this specific one.
Is this the proxy one? Which one? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, it's Article 6, the CPI.
Yes.
We've been increasing it without actually the statutory authority to do so. So again, as mentioned earlier, codifying past practice.
Questions, comments? Hearing none, I'd take a motion to,
Make a motion to vote favorably on Article 6, sponsor principal assessor.
is there a second?
Second motion.
Roll call, Jen,
Ledger I.
Tom,
Galvin, aye, sorry, I'm
Second
falling
aye.
asleep over here.
That's a nice.
wait a minute, we're all out of order too, so.
Yeah.
You guys,
I make a motion that the finance committee recommends favorably on Article 6.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
moving into Article 7, sponsor a principal assessor to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 17F to increase the exemption amount available in MGL to certain senior citizens, surviving spouses, and surviving minors by an amount not to exceed the increase in the cost of living as determined by the CPI for such year or take any action in relation thereto. Very similar to the previous one. Questions, comments, concerns?
Make a motion to vote favorably, Article 7, sponsor principal assessor.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
Jen, roll call.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Second aye.
Mattson, aye.
Whitman, aye.
I make a motion that the finance committee recommends favorable on this, on Article 7. I was waiting for the eyes to look over here.
Second?
Not the eyes, favor, the eyes looking. This.
Yeah. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Moving into Article 8, sponsor principal assessor to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of GL Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 37A, which authorizes an exemption of $500 for blind persons who are legal residents of the Commonwealth and of the town, thereby increasing the amount of exemption from the current amount of $437.50, or take any action in relation thereto.
I don't know if we can afford that.
The Commonwealth bears a percent, 8750 of the tax exemption by statute, so, we're just adding in that additional money.
So the town is paying the additional.
No, so this is actually something, if you look at our cherry sheets revenue, this is what's considered an offset. So very similar to veterans benefits, we pay a certain amount and a portion of that is reimbursed from the state.
Yep.
It's my understanding, we've been giving this exemption, but because we don't have this accepted, we haven't actually received that revenue through the cherry sheets.
So motion to accept or to recommend favorable,
Make a motion to vote favorably for Article 8, sponsor principal assessor.
is there a second?
Second.
motion.
Motion is second, roll call, Jen.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Second aye.
Mattson, aye.
Whitman, aye.
Ready?
My legs are long enough to kick him.
Make a motion that the finance committee recommends favorable on Article 8.
Second.
Any conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Article 9, sponsor a principal assessor to see if the town will vote in accordance with GL Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41D to increase the whole estate allowance for applicants for real estate tax exemption under MGL annually by an amount equal to the increase in the CPI published by the U.S. Department of Labor Bureau of Labor Statistics for such year, with the Department of Revenue to annually inform the town of the amount of this increase or take any action in relation thereto. Questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, I'd take a motion to recommend favorable.
Make a motion to vote favorable on Article 9, sponsor principal assessor.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second, roll call, Jen.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Second aye.
Mattson, aye.
Whitman, aye.
I'm reading.
I make a motion that the finance committee recommends favorably on Article 9.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hearing none, moving into Article 10, I think the next, Article 10 is a request from Wachusett Regional School District. They want to see if the town will vote to approve a proposed amendment to the Wachusett Regional School District Agreement in accordance with MGL 70, Chapter 71, Section 14E by changing the language in section 1 as followed, and I'm not gonna read the entirety. Essentially, when they, annual town meeting, I think we agreed to decrease the number, in the regional agreement update, the part of it was to decrease the number of school committee members. And it was supposed to, they were hoping to have a ratio, a weighted voting of as close to 1 as possible. And looking at the numbers, they realized that Holden is way over. So currently the Holden votes are about 1.3 or counting as 1.3 or 1.4. So they're asking to add a school committee member from Holden to better level everything out. And that actually puts then Rutland's weighted vote as closer to as the highest at 1.13. And it's all student population dependent. So if our population continues to increase, we would be looking to add an additional committee member at some point.
So this doesn't hurt us at all.
It looks like it's written wrong though, to be honest.
Yeah.
It actually helps Rutland a little bit. Because, well, according to my numbers, according to what Holden's gonna do, it's gonna reduce their weight per member percentage by about 8%, and it's gonna increase ours by 6%. So it really helps Rutland.
Yeah.
According to the numbers there.
Why, this language came verbatim from the district, and they, I think, have been back and forth with their council and
It
Desi.
was fine as written. They said town council indicated there's many different ways you could write this article, and they suggested going with the format that they presented.
So,
Oh, yeah, no, I'm
you
good.
guys have questions, concerns?
I read it wrong.
How many school committee people do we have now?
I think after I think it goes down to 16, and I think this would put it up to 17.
I mean Rutland, speed 3.
Three.
We're
That's all
staying
we
at
have
3.
now is 3. We stay at 3.
I think currently we have 4. I think
thought
this
we had
May,
4.
1 is coming off, so we will go down to 3.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yep.
We're at 4? All right.
Yeah, we have 4 right now.
I thought we did. So my question is, where does the school committee, our school committee, Rutland's representatives to Wachusett, where do they stand on this? Have they said anything, plus, minus, pro, con?
The committee as a whole voted to send it to the towns. They were in favor of this amendment, and
The whole Wachusett
the
committee?
whole district. And I think I was at that meeting, and I don't remember there being any concerns at that meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I make a motion to vote favorably for Article 10, sponsor Wachusett Regional School District Committee.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second, roll call, Jen.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye?
Second, I.
Matt's and I.
Whitman, aye.
I make a motion that the finance committee recommends favorable action on Article 10.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hearing none, moving into Article 11, the sponsor is the treasurer collector, to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of General Law, Chapter 200A, Section 9A, allowing an alternative simplified procedure for disposing of abandoned funds, often referred to as unclaimed checks or tailings, held by the town, or take any action in relation thereto. There was a question that came in, wondering if this could be better waited until the transition in the office is complete, and based on staffing and hours availability and everything, what the costs may be associated. And the answer is that this is a standard process for most treasurer collector offices. The fiscal year 24 budget restored the office to the necessary staffing to fulfill the responsibilities of the office. Costs associated with the process are variable year to year dependent upon the amount of checks under the statute, but the office believes there is sufficient funding in our current postage budget.
Question?
Go for it.
Do we know how many abandoned fund checks we have, how many checks we have that have been abandoned?
Greater than, so actually that was the conversation I had with the town accountant the other day, I can't remember the number at the top of my head. It's enough, I think it's maybe almost $20,000 worth of checks, so it's amount that would be nice to put back into the general fund for free
Right.
cash, but it's not into the hundreds of thousands.
Okay.
So this is money that the town has paid to somebody that they haven't cashed the check. It'll go back into our checking account.
Yep.
Oh, perfect.
Always a good thing.
Put it in water or sewer.
Just in the explanation, it states that the listing would be for checks that have been outstanding for more than a year, and if no claim is made within 1 year, then it would be reverted. Is that essentially, like, it's outstanding for a year and then it sits on this list for another year? That's how it works? Okay,
Yeah, so we have to do
Sounds
an
like
official posting through general law.
okay, thank you.
So an official posting means that it's gonna be in the paper, correct?
I believe so.
And that's $300 right now
For listing?
for an official listing? Cause like when you do the
Planning board and zoning stuff.
Has to be posted
It's the one that we had the problem where we had to put more money in, it's the Board of Appeals.
ZBA.
Oh, no, those are only like $50.
Okay, so,
I think oftentimes it's by word or something, and I know, I've seen them in some postings, and it's just a list of, they'll accumulate some and do
are
it.
we required to put him in more than just one paper?
No, so I think if your question about multiple papers, if we did two, even still, that's $100. But what we could do to actually reduce the cost is we could, say, Town of Rutland has a list of unclaimed checks, if you will, provide a link to our website or say it could be readily accessible in the treasurer collector's office, and they can come in person. I think the plan is to only do this at the end of the year, essentially once a year. So this wouldn't be multiple times during the year either.
I would put a link to the actual listing, cause if you say, just come in and ask, you're gonna get a whole bunch of phone calls. Actually, you won't.
Online would be easier, but there's gonna be the people that say, I can't access it online, so we'll have to make it accessible both ways.
I make a motion to vote favorably for Article 11, sponsor treasurer collector.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
Roll call, Jen.
Ledger, aye.
Galvin, aye.
That's nice.
Whitman, aye.
I make a motion that the finance committee recommends favorable action on Article 11.
Second.
That's good. Any conversation? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Moving into Article 12, sponsors the select board. To see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $10,430.26 from Article number 12 of the November 18th, 2021 special town meeting to pay for the final costs associated with the electrical upgrades at Naquag Elementary School, including all incidental and related expenses, or take any action in relation thereto. And this, the explanation is here, and the question was asked about what the total for the electrical upgrades, total cost for the electrical upgrades were. And it said that WRSD provided an initial cost estimate of $73,590 to complete the project, which was the amount used during the May 2022 annual town meeting. After further engineering review and procurement, the remaining balance is $9,610, bringing the total project cost to $83,200.
Question.
Yep.
What did we not do or find that it required additional engineering that raised the cost?
I think so. The point is, we didn't do the necessary due diligence for the procurement. So because they are town buildings, we kind of did our efforts to make sure that the costs that were given to us were appropriate. After further engineering and then procurement costs, it came to about $10,000 or the $9,600 over. So just a little bit more procurement work on our part.
And the reason I ask is, is because CIPC approved that amount of money, so, okay.
Yeah. And unfortunately, this is a project also that just the nature of, I think, some of the supply chain issues. This is something that's also just by the nature of, even when we're procuring it, it's been delayed. I think it's, during February vacation?
The proposed timeline is February vacation. The equipment that's needed to be ordered is a 20-week lead time.
Yeah.
And that's really the problem, is you just can't buy the stuff. And you gotta remember, this number came from the school, probably they got this in January of '22. And then by the time we made it through CIPC town meeting, and then through, the proper channels of procurement, costs have just gone through the roof, so.
Good to know. Okay. Could someone let us know, what system is this on? The fire alarm?
No, this is a large scale sub panel that runs the entire kitchen at Naquag. It's 8 feet tall and 4 feet wide.
So this is a supply chain issue more than it's, someone didn't get, we didn't get a change order for this. We got hit with a supply chain increase, like we get hit at work every day.
Yep.
Inflation as well.
Inflation.
Timing.
Yep. And availability of contractors to do it, so.
So the article says 10,430.26. The explanation says 9610. All we're doing is now moving it from that article to this article to sit there and wait until we move the rest of the money.
No, we're closing out that article. So that project is the November 2021 or whatever it was, library AC replacement unit project. That project has been complete. No other costs will be incurred by that. So we're closing out that article, which is a standard practice we should be doing more often.
Yep.
Taking all those costs, transferring it to the new article. So yes, while we'll only be using 9,600, God forbid anything happens with procurement, we'll still have the.
And technically, June 30th, this article could be closed. Donna could close it.
That's what I'm saying. So this would be another thing. So now we're moving it from one to another, and then we'll have a balance due there.
Well, that would be close to free cash.
And that's fine. I just want to make sure. That was the question I asked, and I didn't.
That's what it says
get
right
that
there.
answer.
It says it in the explanation.
And I think that way, if anything procurement wise happens between now and hopefully whatever, there's a little bit of wiggle room there, not enough to make it significant.
Yeah, I thought it was in the explanation originally, but can we just add that Article 12 is from the library project?
Absolutely. Yep.
Just so we know which one it's coming from.
And it does state in the explanation that the amount being requested for reallocation will close out the article.
Just which one, but for which article, like what?
It'll close out the November 2021 article. Once this work is complete for the library, excuse me, for the Naquag project, the remaining balance will be closed to free cash.
So it does say that in the motion, or the article itself, Jen, that it's coming from Article 12 of the November 18th, 2021 special town
But
meeting.
she's
Same
just asking
transfer.
us to say that the.
What is
that the-
Article 12 for,
Yeah,
which was
define the article.
library,
Just
Yeah,
define
library
the
AC.
library,
The explanation.
Well, yeah, we'll
done.
amend
yeah.
How much over did we, this is unrelated, but how much extra did we budget for the library? We've taken a couple whacks at that already.
For that project, I don't know, you'd have
We
to
must have done way over, right?
So as you know, 2 years ago, we did the articles for the units on the roof.
Yep.
There's still one pending project that's being bundled with the public safety building roof project. That went out to bid. No vendors bid on it. It's probably a $220,000 estimated cost. The engineering's complete, everything's done. The goal is to put it out to bid again in December with a late January opening for the construction season next spring and summer. To get those two done.
So we're just rearranging money. We're still gonna do the library eventually.
Yes, but that pocket of money is now available through a different avenue, so.
Through the chair. Seth, do you think there's gonna be a substantial increase because nobody bid on it before, and now by the time we get to it,
We don't
what was
know.
allocated?
So all the vendors that were spoken to, basically, the way the RFP was written, that it was supposed to be done this fall. And because we went out to bid in late August, everyone was booked solid and couldn't get to it. So they would be looking to get through or get this on the docket for the new construction season next year. So it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing other than, masonry and rebuilding the I don't know, parapet walls around the AC units on the roof now, but nothing out of the ordinary or long lead time items at all. So
Okay. All right, so that should be pretty stable
it should be
then.
pretty stable, yep.
Okay, thanks.
Make a motion to vote favorably on Article 12, sponsor select board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second, roll call, Chad.
Ledger I.
Galvin aye.
Second, aye.
Whitman, aye.
I make a motion that the finance committee
Yeah, give me a.
recommend favorable action on Article 12.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Having him could do it like that and get it over in one vote.
Opposed?
Article 13, sponsored Department of Public Works, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $114,000 to operate the stormwater services enterprise for fiscal year 2024 or take any action in relation thereto, the appropriation based off the following budget for the remaining of fiscal year 2024 as presented in the articles. So, oh, sorry, I realized I missed a couple.
I have a couple of
Go
questions.
for it.
Regular wages, is that for the staff or is that for the DPW, if you will, personnel? Handling
Yes.
stormwater?
Yeah, so you can almost sort of think of this as offsetting as well, offsetting the general fund, so DPW director, some other associated staff, this will work to support some of the general fund expenditures as well.
Okay, and the same thing with the administrative assistant?
Correct. Mostly on the administrative assistant side, mostly to assist with the billing of stormwater.
Okay. And purchase services, have they already been purchased? In the pipeline, or we're gonna do it after we've allocated the money?
Yeah, no, we can't go into contract if we don't have the funding, so we have not,
Okay.
not done that yet.
Okay.
Ted, go ahead.
If the money is raised and appropriated, isn't that in essence raising taxes in the middle of the year?
So this isn't a tax, this is a stormwater fee. This is not, doesn't have any association with your property value. This actually has association with your, the assessment classification of your property. So this is all developed parcels. Mostly residential, obviously all commercial, industrial parcels will receive this fund. I see your point about, raising a fee mid-year. But I just wanna also highlight, earlier in the year, we did receive a call from the United States EPA threatening $25,000 a day in civil penalties for not being in compliance with this stormwater permit. So this is an effort to demonstrate to the federal government, to the state government, that we're taking this seriously and putting our, in this case, exactly, putting our money where our mouth is.
So wasn't this conversation all part of the town meeting this last?
Yep.
Yeah, so we created the stormwater, essentially the stormwater enterprise account at annual town meeting.
Right.
And we were hopeful that the creation of that would be hopeful enough to appease the EPA for a little while, and it wasn't. And so,
Surprise.
yeah. We've been supposed to fund it since 2018 or something, I think. So Weston and Sampson came into our board meeting, our last board meeting, and gave a nice presentation as far as kind of where Rutland stands in accordance with the stormwater management, and it's not so great.
So, yeah, I have a question. Oh, go ahead, Ted.
Might be the same question. Just anticipating that someone's gonna ask, why can't we transfer it from available funds instead of raise the fee?
I think, well, first of all, we'd have to identify the available funds. If anyone is suggesting free cash, stabilization, I would not recommend that, because that would be, one-time funding source for a recurring operating expense. This is something that we'll forever have to take care of. If anything, as the permits get more comprehensive, the requirements and unfortunately the cost also increase as well.
So we've not been taking care of it.
Correct.
That's why we got all those letters last year that we
That's right.
kept talking about, and this is finally paying the piper.
Yeah.
Pay me now, pay me later.
Don't forget what you just explained right there, record that, 'cause someone's gonna ask.
So if this is for approximately 6 months or so.
Yep.
Are you gonna come back next year and it's gonna be 228
228.
for a year?
Yep, that was the budget that was presented to the FinCom and
228.
Select Board last year, 228, so this is approximately half of the year. So the fee will be half as well.
And if I understand correctly, as of right now, this sits with the Board of Public Works, so it would be when the Board of Public Works, similar to setting water and sewer rates, it would be setting a stormwater rate. I've asked to have some additional kind of transparency as to what actually is needed and where the money is going and how we can get, similar to
Absolutely.
how Joe had done the cost.
Two people over from me is shaking his head, he wants to see it too, I understand that.
Yeah, and so I've asked for that, just, Joe had worked with, Weston and Sampson to get the double amount of this for a full year last spring, but now I think Austin just cut it in half and is,
Good.
This will show up on the first bill in January with the 2.5 override at the same time, correct?
Well, we can choose which bill we'd like it to show up on. Candidly, I think if we just do it, we don't have to do it all 4 quarters because there's costs associated with recurring billing like that. So it's either on the 3rd quarter or the 4th quarter, but yes, it will be at the new year.
and I know somewhere, Austin, we had talked about what that dollar amount would be per parcel, and
Yeah, so it's actually, that's in the, we can put that in the explanation, but that's in your answers document. It's approximately, for the full budget, it's approximately, so 228,000, it's approximately $70 per year. So it's roughly $35 for this year, per parcel.
For those with rain barrels, do we get a discount?
No, oddly enough, I think you have to have a permit for rain barrels, to be honest. I think you may.
Is that a joke?
Have you met our building inspector?
Need a permit
I
for
know
a rain
it's-
barrel?
For some stormwater, believe it or not, I think, cause I read this somewhere, some communities, rain barrels are restricted. believe it or not.
Stagnant water, right?
Yeah.
Probably something to do with that.
So what Ted said though.
But I don't think we're suggesting to do that with this, so.
No, but so to be perfectly transparent here, what Ted said is, or Karen said, we're gonna get the override number and we're gonna get hit with $35 and next year it's gonna be $70. We should be transparent on that because it is an increase to the taxes.
Yeah, so actually, a big portion of our stormwater, actually our plan that we have to comply with, is stormwater education. So it's not only, it's talking about the stormwater and what the requirements are, but also educating people. And that's, you notice in your packet, I've included a stormwater financing frequently asked questions document. It's the goal to, or it's our intent to present this also at town meeting, to inform the public about what the stormwater financing enterprise fund looks like.
The only thing I would say is, from reading this and looking at this, people would assume that this is something the town is gonna do on their own. But it's not. We are required to do this by deed, by the Department of Environmental Protection. So I think it needs to be stressed that this is a requirement. We don't have a choice in this.
It'll be, so that's why we have that attachment in that handout. And that'll be included in the warrant.
Okay.
It's another unfunded mandate that they give us all the time.
Yeah, but it's not something
State
that
and
we
the federal
should,
government.
it's not something we don't know about. We
Yeah,
knew
but
about
it's
this last year, we said it, it was said at town
And I'm
meeting,
not fighting
so.
that, but it's an unfunded mandate.
Oh, absolutely,
that
you're
every
right.
year they throw at us, and we don't have a choice.
Right, and you're not wrong, it's just that if we talk transparency, we've been right up front with this in the beginning. I remember Joe telling us that, we haven't been doing this and it's gonna come and get us, and it is, so. Everybody knows about it.
It's from the federal government, an unfunded mandate. If it was from the state, then we could go after some funds.
They would pay us anyways, so it's.
They do, they have in the past, but things we've done.
So has the Board of Public Works decided where this is gonna go? Is it gonna be one bill, or is the $35 gonna be developed on the 2 quarters? Has anyone decided that?
we haven't talked about how it was gonna be billed yet, and I think that would be more of an administrative side of decision than a Board of Public Works. We set the rates, we don't set, historically, we set the rates, we don't set how those rates are billed for water and sewer.
It's just that I would just think that at this point, people are gonna ask how this is gonna be billed. Is it gonna be $35 all at once, or is it gonna be half and half? And that would be the
We'll do it
thing.
once a year, and the reason why I'm recommending once a year is because if you think about, when you say per parcel, every day or every month, we could have a different number of parcels. So we have to export that from our assessor system into our utility billing system. There's costs associated from the company that does the billing for us with that. In an effort to save money, we'll be doing it once a year, so we'll do a snapshot at that time of all the parcels that are eligible under this program, and then we'll bill those parcels. So that'll change the next year, obviously, as new properties are developed, they will then be under the Stormwater Enterprise Fund.
So when it comes to a parcel, there's no definition of acreage. It's just a parcel, whether you own a 1/4 acre or 5 acres.
Correct.
It's the same rate.
Right.
Okay.
I think it would be a good idea, I know you've got the fee amounts, Austin, that they've been threatening at the town if we don't start doing this to give an example of if we don't and we start getting fined, what that's gonna cost the town, and that would, we'd have to figure out how that would need to be paid, which I'm assuming would come out of whatever town funds we have, and $70 a year is a lot easier to deal with than
Decimating town
25K a
services
day.
or,
A
yeah.
day.
Yeah, we can't afford 25K a day,
No,
period, so
that's gonna be tough.
there's no real option.
I make a motion to vote favorably, Article 13, sponsored Department of Public Works.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, Jen.
Ledger I.
Galvin I.
Second I.
That's enough.
Whitman, aye.
I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommends favorably on Article 13.
Second.
You said that so happily. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Moving on, Tamika, I know we got a note about the 15 and 16. Are they the ones currently here, or did you remove them already?
Yes, so they've been removed from the final document. I apologize, I didn't remove them from here because I was just trying to save on paper.
No,
I
that's
didn't wanna reprint everything.
Totally fine.
But yes, 15 and 16 have been pulled from the warrant, so 14 street acceptance will be the last warrant article.
Okay, so moving into Article 14, street acceptance, to see if the town will vote to accept as a, and I think, should this say public, planning board? I'm not sure, sponsor, instead of, for sponsor, it just says streets.
Technically, they're not the sponsor of it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
That's
that's how
fine.
town council has us do it.
Okay. To see if the town will vote to accept as a public way the roadway known as Nate's Way from station to station as heretofore laid out by the select board and shown on a plan of land entitled as built plan Nate's Way dated September 29th, 2022, prepared by Finley Engineering Services and on file with the town clerk, and authorize the select board to acquire by gift, purchase and or eminent domain the fee to and or easements in Nate's Way for all purposes for which public ways are used in the town of Rutland, and any drainage, utility and or easements related thereto, or take any action in relation thereto. This is a typical road acceptance. Quinn Engineering had been out and done their work and submitted his list of concerns. It was addressed by the developer, and then DPW had their list and confirmed that everything was done to meet DPW's standards as well as Quinn Engineering standards. Any questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Ted.
Do we know how the select board, the planning board is recommending on this yet?
I vote a favorable action.
Thank you.
Make a
Any-
motion to vote favorably, Article 14, street acceptance.
Second.
Roll call, Jen.
Ledger I.
Galvin I.
Second I.
That's enough.
Whitman, aye.
I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommends favorable action on Article 14.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, through the chair, I just wanna state that I will recuse. Recuse, not the recuse.
Recuse yourself from this vote.
And the reason for that is that, well, I'm gonna give, but I wanna make sure that people know why I'm recusing myself. The road was constructed, that project down there was constructed by Lucier Builders. And David Lucier is a principal in that company, and David's my son-in-law. So just to make sure that I'm upfront with all that. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Any opposed? Okay.
And then we received communication from Austin, saying that in meeting with the new town planner, they have asked, he and Austin have asked, that we hold Articles 15 and 16, because there were some requirements that weren't quite met, and they're afraid that it wouldn't pass through the Attorney General if they were passed, that they would get kicked back. So we'll probably, my guess would be looking at them for the spring, but we don't know yet for sure. So, I think then,
We recommended that the board not vote to finalize the warrant until your meeting on Monday, so that I can update the explanations and then you'll have the final document before you sign.
okay, cause I was gonna, that's fine, I was just gonna ask how you wanted the motion to be, but we'll just
Yeah,
wait.
we recommend it,
Okay,
yeah.
that's, if you're okay with it, then. Any other business to come before the board? I appreciate everyone's time tonight. Hearing none, I would take a motion to adjourn the select board.
Make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
There's a second. Roll call, Jen.
Ledger, I.
Galvin, aye.
Second, aye.
Whitman, I, we're adjourned at 7:19. Thank you.
That was fast.
Darren, your job.
That's your job.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
There you go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed at 7:20.